Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with this question before you answer it. When was the last time you woke up happy? Not relieved, not comfortable, not simply unbothered by anything terrible, but genuinely, fully, radiantly happy, the kind of happiness that makes a man feel like the world was built just for him to walk through it. If you had to think about that for more than 3 seconds, I want you to stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you is not a philosophy borrowed from a dusty book, and it is not the wishful thinking of a man who has never known hardship. It is a truth so simple, so devastatingly obvious, that most men will hear it and nod, and then go right back to living as if they never heard it at all. Here it is. Happiness is not something that happens to you. It is something you choose every single morning before your feet ever touch the floor. I want you to think about a man named Bill. Bill is a decent man. A good man, in fact. He goes to bed at a reasonable hour. He gets up when the alarm rings. He pours his coffee, buttons his coat, and drives the same 12 miles to the same building he has driven to for the last 11 years. He does his work without complaint. He comes home. He eats his supper. He watches television until the news is over, and then he does it all again. Bill is not lazy. He is not cruel. He has never stolen a dime in his life. He loves his wife. He would do anything for his children. But ask Bill on a quiet Tuesday afternoon when nobody is watching, "Are you happy?" And Bill will do something very curious. He will pause. He will look slightly off to the side, the way a man does when he is searching for something he is not sure he ever owned. And then he will say slowly, "Well, I can't complain. I can't complain." That is the battle cry of a man who has quietly surrendered, who decided somewhere between 25 and 45 that happiness was a luxury reserved for luckier men, and that the best he could do was endure his days without sufficient cause to protest them. Bill has never asked himself, not once, not on a single morning, what would make today remarkable? He has no answer because he has never asked the question. He has no destination because he never chose one. He is a ship with a full engine, a willing crew, and no heading, drifting across years that look almost identical to one another until, one day, he looks back across the water and cannot find the shore. And the tragedy is not that life was unkind to Bill. The tragedy is that life was waiting, and Bill never showed up. Andrew Carnegie came to America from Scotland as a child, so poor his family had nothing to their name but the clothes on their backs. He took a job as a telegraph messenger boy at $1.20 a week. But Carnegie did something that separated him from the 10,000 other boys who worked similar jobs in similar cities. He made a decision, a conscious, deliberate, iron-willed decision that he would be happy in his work and that his happiness would be the fuel, not the reward. He did not wait until he was rich to feel like a man of purpose. He decided he was a man of purpose first, and the wealth followed the decision like iron filings following a magnet. By the time his life was finished, he had given away $350 million. He began with a decision. Just a decision. Thomas Edison failed, by his own account, over 10,000 times trying to perfect the electric light. 10,000. Most men are undone by one failure. Most men take a single rejection as proof that the universe is against them, and they retreat, they surrender. They go find a chair and sit in it for the rest of their lives. But Edison had something those men did not. He had chosen, somewhere deep in his remarkable mind, to be interested in failure, fascinated by it. He had reframed the entire experience of not yet succeeding into something that felt, to him, like forward motion. He was happy in the laboratory at midnight because he had decided the laboratory at midnight was a magnificent place to be. He did not need the result to give him his joy. He carried his joy with him like a lantern. Abraham Lincoln lost 8 elections. His business failed. His fiancée died. He suffered what we would today recognize as crippling depression. Dark nights that would have broken most men permanently. And yet Lincoln made a choice. He chose again and again to return, to get up, to find meaning in service larger than his own suffering. He wrote in his own hand, to himself, not for publication, notes that amounted to this: I will be worthy of this life. He chose dignity. He chose contribution. He chose deliberately to act like a happy man even in the middle of grief. And something remarkable happened. Gradually, the acting became the truth. Something is stalking millions of men and women today, and most of them cannot name it. It moves through their mornings like a shadow they cannot quite see. It sits with them at the breakfast table. It rides with them to work. It whispers to them in the quiet moments between tasks, in the pause between one thought and the next. And what it whispers is this: not yet, not yet. You are not there yet. And so they keep moving. They work harder. They chase the next thing: the raise, the house, the title on the door, the retirement account that finally hits the right number. They tell themselves, and they genuinely believe it, that once they arrive at that place, once they cross that particular finish line, then they will allow themselves to be happy. They are waiting for permission, permission that will never come. Here is what is actually happening to these people. And perhaps to you, they have built, without ever intending to, a lifelong postponement system. A magnificent, elaborate, perfectly constructed machine whose sole purpose is to ensure that happiness is always just ahead, always one achievement away, always one problem solved away, always one season of struggle away from finally being earned. The promotion arrives. There is a brief glow, a week, perhaps two, and then the machine resets. Now the next level beckons. Now a new insufficiency makes itself known. The goalposts have moved, as they always move, and the man finds himself standing in a new field that looks remarkably like the old one. Still waiting, still earning, still not yet. This is not ambition. Ambition is a magnificent thing. This is a trap dressed in ambition's clothing. And here is the truth that changes everything. The truth so simple a child could understand it, and so profound that most adults will spend a lifetime avoiding it. Happiness is not at the end of the road. Happiness is how you choose to walk it. It is not a reward issued upon arrival. It is a decision made at departure. It is not something the world owes you when your circumstances finally align correctly. It is something you bring to your circumstances every day by an act of will, by a deliberate choice made before the day has had a single chance to influence you. The man who understands this wakes up differently. He does not wake up and ask, "What will today give me?" He wakes up and declares, "Here is what I am bringing to today." He has stopped outsourcing his inner life to external events. He has taken back the one thing no circumstance, no economy, no other human being can ever take from him: his own chosen response to being alive. That is where your power lives. Not in what happens to you, in what you decide about what happens to you. Make the decision. Make it today. Make it before tomorrow asks you to. This is where happiness begins, not out there somewhere, but right here in a single, sovereign, undefeated choice. There is something happening to you every single morning before you are fully awake. And if you have never stopped to examine it, it may be the most important thing you have never noticed. It begins the moment consciousness returns. Before you have spoken a word, before you have made a single decision, before you have even decided what kind of day you intend to have, something else has already begun planting seeds in the soil of your mind. The news anchor is telling you what went wrong overnight. The worry you carried to bed has resumed exactly where it left off. The voice in your head, that tireless, opinionated, never off-duty voice, has already begun its morning broadcast. And almost none of it is good. By the time most men sit down to breakfast, their minds have already been thoroughly planted with anxiety, with scarcity, with the low hum of dread that passes for normal in the modern world. And they wonder why nothing grows but struggle. Here is what you must understand about the mind you carry inside your skull. It is, without question, the most sophisticated and powerful instrument ever conceived. It has produced symphonies and skyscrapers, mapped the stars, and split the atom. It is capable of solving problems of breathtaking complexity. And it has one extraordinary characteristic that most people spend their entire lives failing to appreciate. It cannot distinguish between what you deliberately choose to think and what you merely allow to drift in. It does not grade your thoughts on intention. It does not sort them into chosen and accidental. It treats every thought you hold with consistent, democratic, absolute impartiality, and it goes to work on all of them equally. Plant doubt, and it cultivates doubt. Plant resentment, and it grows resentment with the quiet efficiency of a master gardener who never takes a day off. But plant purpose, plant gratitude, plant the expectation of good, and that same magnificent instrument turns all of its extraordinary power in that direction. Instead, the soil does not argue with the seed. It simply performs. And this is where the whole thing turns in your favor. Because if the mind plants whatever it receives, then the man who chooses what it receives in the morning holds an advantage so significant, so decisive, that it borders on unfair. You do not need to overhaul your life. You do not need a different set of circumstances, or a new city, or a fresh start. You need 5 minutes, 5 quiet, intentional minutes before the world rushes in, to do the planting yourself. Ride something worthy. Speak something true about the day ahead. Write down one thing you are moving toward and one thing you are grateful for. That is all the seed money required. The harvest you have been walking through. The mood, the outlook, the quiet tone of your daily life did not arrive randomly. Someone planted it. Make sure, from this morning forward, that someone is you. There is a quiet crisis living inside the daily lives of otherwise perfectly capable men and women. And it is so commonplace, so universally accepted as normal, that almost nobody thinks to question it. It shows up not in the dramatic moments, not in the tragedies, not in the genuine hardships that life occasionally delivers to every doorstep, but in the ordinary ones. The Tuesday afternoons, the Sunday evenings, the unremarkable Wednesday mornings when nothing is particularly wrong, and yet something feels persistently, inexplicably off. These people are not sick. They are not broken. They have food on the table, a roof overhead, people who care whether they come home at night. And still, underneath the surface of their adequate functioning, respectable lives, there runs a current of low-grade dissatisfaction that they cannot locate, cannot name, and cannot seem to shake. They have looked at their lives through the same lens for so long that they have forgotten they are wearing one. Here is the thing about the human mind that will stop you cold if you sit with it long enough. Your brain, that remarkable 3-pound instrument riding behind your eyes, was not originally designed for happiness. It was designed for survival. And survival, for most of human history, meant one thing above all else: find the threat, scan the environment, locate the danger. Never, under any circumstances, allow yourself to become so comfortable that you stop looking for what could go wrong. That mechanism saved the species. It kept your ancestors alive in a world full of genuine, immediate physical danger. But you are not living in that world. And the mechanism never got the message, so it keeps running. It keeps scanning. In the absence of genuine predators, it finds smaller things: the colleague who did not say good morning, the bill that arrived unexpectedly, the vague sense that other people's lives are somehow more vivid and more satisfying than your own. It catalogs every imperfection with the dedication of a scientist and the bias of a prosecutor. And because it finds what it looks for, because the mind, as we have established, is extraordinarily good at locating whatever it has been pointed toward, it builds, brick by brick, day by day, a case against your own contentment. But here is where the door opens. If the mind is a lens, and it is, then the lens can be cleaned. It can be redirected. It can be trained, through nothing more dramatic than daily practice, to scan for something different entirely, not to ignore problems, not to pretend that difficulty does not exist, but to give equal investigative energy to what is working, to what is present, to what is good, to the 10,000 small mercies that arrive in every ordinary day and go completely unrecorded, because nobody taught you to keep that particular ledger. Start keeping it tonight. Write down 3 things, just 3, that were genuinely good about today. Not monumental, not life-changing, just good. Do it tomorrow. Do it the day after. Within 30 days, you will not recognize the world you are walking through, because you will finally be seeing all of it. And all of it, looked at honestly, is considerably more remarkable than most of us have given it credit for being. There is something quietly devastating happening inside the minds of people who believe that life is happening to them. And the devastation is not in their circumstances. It is in something far closer, far more personal, and far more correctable than anything the outside world could ever deliver to their doorstep. It lives in the story they are telling themselves about what their circumstances mean. And that story, not the circumstances themselves, is what is running their lives. Most people have never questioned this. They see an event occur, they feel an immediate emotional response, and they conclude with complete and total certainty that the event caused the feeling. The traffic made them angry. The criticism made them ashamed. The unexpected setback made them hopeless. It feels automatic. It feels like physics. It feels as inevitable and impersonal as gravity. But it is not gravity. It is a habit. And habits, unlike gravity, can be changed. Here is the single most liberating idea I have ever encountered in a lifetime of studying why some men rise and others stay exactly where they started. Circumstances are neutral. They carry no instructions. They arrive with no pre-attached meaning, no emotional label, no directive about how the man who receives them is supposed to feel. A circumstance is simply an event, a fact stripped of interpretation, sitting in the world exactly as it is. It is the human mind that takes that bare, neutral fact and immediately, within fractions of a second, wraps it in a story. And that story is not chosen from a single option. There are always at least 2 ways to read what has just happened. The mind simply reaches for the most familiar one, the one it has practiced most, the one it has been running, largely unexamined, since childhood. 2 men receive identical news that the company is eliminating their position. The first man's practice story says, "I am unwanted. I am behind. The world is confirming what I always suspected about myself." The second man's practice story says, "A door has closed, which means I am now standing in a hallway full of other doors." The event was identical. The emotional outcome, the happiness or the despair that follows, was manufactured entirely in the interpretation, not in the facts. And here is where your entire relationship with daily happiness can shift permanently. You cannot always govern what arrives at your door, but you hold absolute, unchallengeable authority over the story you assign to it. That authority has always been yours. It was never taken from you. It was simply never claimed. Begin claiming it. When something arrives today that your mind immediately wraps in a dark story, pause. Just pause. And ask one question with genuine curiosity. Is there another way to read this? There almost always is. And the man who finds it, consistently, habitually, by practiced choice, is not living a luckier life than his neighbor. He is simply telling a better story. And the remarkable thing about stories is that we get to write them ourselves. There is a thief operating in the lives of millions of intelligent, capable, hard-working men and women. And it has never once been caught, because most of its victims do not even know they are being robbed. It does not come through the window at night. It does not arrive with a demand or a threat or any outward sign of menace. It comes quietly, in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, dressed in the respectable clothing of thinking ahead, It sits down beside you at your own table, in your own home, and it begins methodically, relentlessly, with extraordinary creativity, to steal the one thing you can never earn back. It steals your today by filling it entirely with tomorrow. And the man being robbed sits there, coffee going cold in his hand, staring at a future that has not arrived and may never arrive, living through catastrophes that exist nowhere in the physical universe except inside the 6 inches between his ears. And he calls it being responsible. He calls it planning. He calls it thinking things through. What he is actually doing is suffering in advance for problems that may never require his suffering at all. Here is what is actually occurring in the mind of a man who has developed the habit of projecting himself perpetually into an imagined future. The human brain, for all its breathtaking sophistication, has a significant and well-documented limitation. It cannot reliably tell the difference between something that is actually happening and something that is being vividly imagined. The body responds to a detailed mental picture of catastrophe with the same chemical cascade it would produce if the catastrophe were real and present, and standing in the room, the heart rate climbs. The muscles tighten. The whole magnificent biological system shifts into a state of emergency for an event that does not exist, that has never existed, that statistically, in the overwhelming majority of cases, will never exist. And this state of manufactured emergency becomes, for many men and women, the background radiation of their entire lives. Not a temporary response to genuine danger, but a permanent, low-grade, exhausting condition that poisons every present moment with the toxin of an imagined future. They are never here. They are always there. In the disaster that is coming, in the conversation that might go wrong, in the version of next year where everything has fallen apart. But here is the ground beneath your feet. Solid, real, and available to you right now. This present moment, not next week, not next year, not the imagined worst-case version of next Tuesday, but right now, this actual physical breathing moment is almost certainly manageable. Examine it honestly. Strip away every projection, every imagined future consequence, every story about what might happen, and look only at what is happening. You are still here. You are still capable. The present moment, met directly and honestly, has never yet defeated you. It will not start today. So here is your single instruction for this day. And it is deceptively simple. When your mind leaves the present and begins furnishing a future full of trouble, notice it, name it, and then return. Return to the room you are actually in, the conversation you are actually having, the work that is actually in front of you. The future will arrive in its own time and ask for what it needs. Until then, it requires nothing from you, and it has no right to the peace of your present day. There is a force shaping your happiness right now, quietly, consistently, and with remarkable efficiency, that most men and women have never once stopped to consciously examine. It is not their bank account. It is not their job title. It is not the neighborhood they live in, or the car parked in their driveway, or any of the other external measurements by which modern men so frequently attempt to take the temperature of their own contentment. It is the faces around the table, the voices on the other end of the telephone, the people whose company they keep so routinely, so habitually, so automatically, that they have long since stopped noticing what that company is actually doing to them. And what it is doing, in many cases, is this: it is slowly, imperceptibly, one conversation at a time, rewriting the internal script by which they understand what life is, what is possible, and what they deserve to feel on an ordinary Thursday morning. Most people have no idea this is happening. They simply know that some days feel heavier than others. They simply know that certain conversations leave them smaller than they were before they started. Here is the mechanism at work. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Human beings are, at the most fundamental level of their neurology, profoundly social creatures. We did not survive as a species by being islands. We survived by attuning ourselves with exquisite sensitivity to the emotional states of the people around us. That attunement is not a choice. It is wiring. Ancient, deep, automatic wiring that operates entirely below the level of conscious decision, which means that when you spend your hours, your irreplaceable, non-refundable daily hours, in the company of men and women who have decided that the world is hostile, that effort is pointless, that happiness is naive, and ambition is foolish. Your nervous system is not simply hearing those ideas. It is absorbing them, not because you are weak, not because you are undiscerning, but because you are human, because the same magnificent social sensitivity that allowed your ancestors to survive is now, in the wrong company, quietly convincing you to shrink. The chronically negative person is not merely unpleasant company. They are an environment. And you cannot spend significant time in a damaging environment without being shaped by it, any more than a plant can thrive in a room with no light, regardless of how strong its roots. But here is where the trajectory changes, and it changes by your hand alone. You are not obligated to be rude. You are not required to deliver speeches or stage dramatic exits, but you are absolutely, unequivocally, without a single caveat, entitled to be intentional about whose voice gets the most hours of your day. Deliberately, and without apology, the company of people who are building something. People who speak about possibilities with the same energy that others reserve for grievances. People who, when you leave their presence, make you feel like the ceiling is higher than you remembered. Spend 30 days doing this with genuine commitment. 30 days of choosing, as often as circumstances permit, the room where people are growing rather than the room where people are complaining. And watch what begins to grow in you, because you are, whether you have chosen it consciously or not, always becoming a reflection of the voices you allow to speak loudest in your daily life. There is a misunderstanding so deeply embedded in the thinking of ambitious, driven, forward-moving men and women that it has quietly cost more happiness than almost any other single idea I have ever encountered. It is this, that gratitude is somehow the enemy of ambition, that the man who counts his blessings is the man who has stopped pushing, that contentment and drive cannot occupy the same chest at the same time, that if you allow yourself to feel genuinely thankful for what you already have, you will lose your edge, your hunger, the sharpness that separates the man who builds something from the man who merely inherits comfort and calls it a life. And so the ambitious man keeps gratitude at arm's length. He tells himself he will be thankful later, when the goal is reached, when the work is finished, when the gap between where he is and where he intends to be has finally satisfactorily closed. He treats thankfulness as a retirement activity, something for old men in rocking chairs, something for people who have stopped wanting things. And in doing so, he has made a strategic error of the first order. Here is what is actually true about gratitude. Not as a sentiment, not as a spiritual exercise, not as the soft recommendation of people who have never fought for anything, but as a mechanism of the mind. The brain operates at every waking moment from a baseline, a default frequency, if you will, a background hum of either sufficiency or scarcity that colors every thought, every decision, every interaction that passes through it during the course of a day, the man operating from a baseline of scarcity. The man whose unexamined default setting is not enough, not yet, still behind, brings that frequency to everything. His decisions carry the fingerprints of desperation. His relationships are subtly colored by the anxiety of a man who does not believe he has enough to be generous. His successes, when they arrive, are processed too quickly, cataloged and filed, before they can be genuinely felt, because the scarcity baseline immediately points to the next insufficiency. He is running a magnificent engine on the wrong fuel, and he cannot understand why, despite everything he has achieved, the tank always feels empty. Gratitude changes the baseline, not by removing ambition, not by dissolving drive, but by shifting the frequency from which all of that ambition and drive operates. The grateful man is not less hungry. He is hungry from a place of abundance rather than a place of lack. And that difference in the quality of his decisions and the sustainability of his energy is the difference between a man who builds something lasting and a man who exhausts himself chasing something he can never quite name. So here is your practice, and I want you to treat it with the same seriousness you would give any other strategic tool in your arsenal. Every morning before the noise begins, write down 3 things you already possess that a younger version of yourself would have considered extraordinary. Not what you are pursuing, what you have. Ride them slowly. Let them land. Then go pursue everything else with the full force of everything you are. Because the most dangerous competitor in any room is not the hungriest man. It is the man who is both hungry and grateful. He has nothing to prove and everything to build. And that combination, my friend, is utterly, magnificently unstoppable. Now here is what Carnegie, Edison, and Lincoln understood that Bill has never been told. Think about a farmer and his land. The earth does not care what you plant. You plant corn, it returns corn. You plant nightshade, it returns nightshade. The soil has no opinion about your harvest. It simply, faithfully, endlessly gives back exactly what you put into it. It cannot do otherwise. That is its nature. Your mind works the same way. If you plant the thought, this day will be difficult, and I am not equal to it, your mind will return that harvest to you in full. You will find difficulty at every corner. You will measure yourself against every obstacle and feel yourself lacking. You will arrive home at night with the proof you set out to find in the morning. But if you plant, deliberately, consciously, before that first cup of coffee, the thought, I choose to be happy today, and I will look for reasons to justify that choice, your mind will return that harvest. You will find the reasons. They were always there. You simply were not looking. This is not pretending. This is not the hollow cheerfulness of a man who refuses to see the world clearly. Lincoln saw the world with devastating clarity. Edison saw every failure in perfect detail. Carnegie never pretended the obstacles were not real. They simply refused to let the obstacles choose for them. And here is what I want you to understand above all else. You do not need a new life to be happy in. You do not need a different job, a larger house, a better set of circumstances. Bill doesn't need a new life. Bill needs a new decision. And so, perhaps do you, here is the one thing, the single, small, utterly achievable thing I want you to do today. Before tomorrow morning arrives, take out a piece of paper and write down 5 things about this life, the one you already have, that you could, right now, be genuinely grateful for. Not things you are waiting for, things you have. Write them down, read them out loud to yourself, and then say, plainly, like a man who means it, I choose to be happy today. That is all. Just that. But do not underestimate it. Because that small act, repeated daily, is the only difference between a man who lived and a man who merely passed through. Remember, happiness is not a destination you arrive at. It is a vehicle you choose to drive. This is Earl Nightingale, reminding you that the seeds you plant this morning will become the harvest you walk through tonight. Choose them wisely and choose them well. Good day.